Half of American women under 40 are now single, and most of them didn't choose to be. That number should stop you cold, because it's not a blip. It's a trend that's been building for 2 decades, and the reasons behind it are far more complicated and more uncomfortable than anyone wants to admit. If you felt it personally or you know someone who has, stay with me, because what's unfolding in America's dating landscape right now is one of the most significant social shifts of our lifetime. And before we're done, you're going to understand exactly why it's happening. Hit subscribe and turn on the bell. We cover the cultural and social stories that actually matter, with data and honesty, no agenda. So let's get into it. For most of the 20th century, the blueprint was simple. You graduated, found someone nearby, got married young, built a life. That system had flaws, plenty of them, but it worked as a matching mechanism. Geography, church, workplace, family networks, these were the engines that brought men and women together. Slowly, and then all at once, nearly every one of those engines has stalled. Start with education. For the first time in American history, women significantly outnumber men on college campuses. Women now earn roughly 60% of all bachelor's degrees in the United States. That's a remarkable achievement by any measure, but it has introduced a tension that researchers are only beginning to grapple with honestly. Studies consistently show that the majority of college-educated women prefer to date men with equivalent or higher educational attainment. The numbers no longer support that preference at scale. For every 4 college-educated women, there are roughly 3 college-educated men. That gap, multiplied across millions of people and a decade of dating, creates a structural mismatch that no app or attitude adjustment can fully solve. And it doesn't stop at degrees. It extends into income. Women's earnings have risen sharply over the last 30 years, a genuine and hard-won economic victory. But surveys show that women, on average, still factor a man's financial stability heavily into long-term partner selection. This is not shallow. Evolutionary psychologists will tell you it's deeply wired. The problem is that male wages for men without college degrees have been stagnant or declining in real terms for decades. The manufacturing and trade jobs that once gave working-class men a stable economic identity have shrunk dramatically. A man who once could have supported a family on a factory salary in Ohio now works 2 gig jobs and lives with roommates at 32. Women see that. The attraction calculus shifts. Nobody's villain here, but the math is unforgiving. Then there's the digital layer. Dating apps were supposed to solve the proximity problem, and in theory, the idea is elegant. A giant pool, algorithmic matching, endless opportunity. In practice, the experience has been deeply uneven by gender. Studies of major dating platforms show that men swipe right, meaning they express interest, at dramatically higher rates than women. Women are more selective upfront. The result is that a relatively small percentage of men receive the overwhelming majority of female interest, while most men receive almost none. This isn't a critique of women's standards. It's a description of how scarcity and abundance warp human psychology. When options appear infinite, commitment feels less urgent. Meaningful relationships take longer to form or don't form at all, and both men and women end up lonelier than the app's marketing would ever suggest. There's also something shifting in the social development of young men that deserves an honest look. Boys in America are, by most academic measures, falling behind. They are more likely to drop out of high school, less likely to go to college, more likely to be unemployed in their 20s, and more likely to be socially isolated. A significant and growing number of young men report having no close friends. The rise of online entertainment, video games, and algorithmically optimized content has made it easier than ever to meet baseline psychological needs, stimulation, community, status, without ever leaving the apartment. Some researchers refer to this as the cheap dopamine problem. When the path of least resistance is a screen, the hard, uncomfortable, rewarding work of building real relationships often loses. Women notice, not because they're cruel, but because they're human. They want partners who are engaged, ambitious, emotionally present, and growing. And they're encountering at increasing rates men who are none of those things, not out of malice, but out of drift. Here's where it gets philosophically thorny. The feminist movement, broadly and rightly, told women they didn't need a man to be complete, successful, or happy. That's true. And women have built on that foundation magnificently. Careers, independence, full lives. But it created an unexpected asymmetry. Women were handed a permission structure to be selective, to wait, to build themselves first. Men were given no equivalent cultural script. No one built a serious movement that told men how to become worth choosing. The result is that many women have risen and are looking sideways at a male landscape that hasn't kept pace. That's not anyone's fault, but it is a problem, and pretending it isn't out of politeness or political caution helps no one. The data on loneliness reinforces all of this. The U.S. Surgeon General declared a loneliness epidemic several years ago, noting that a lack of social connection carries health risks comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Men and women experience this epidemic differently. Men report more severe social isolation. Women report more dating frustration and dissatisfaction. Neither group is fine. And the political and media conversation around this tends to collapse almost immediately into blame. Men blame feminism, women blame patriarchy, and everyone goes home angrier and still alone. The more honest answer is that we are in the middle of a profound social transition that none of our existing institutions were designed to handle. The old scripts are gone. The new ones haven't been written yet. And in that gap, real people, women who want partners, men who want purpose, families that never quite got started, are paying the price. What actually helps? The research points toward a few consistent findings.
Shared physical spaces, gyms, hobby groups, religious communities, volunteer organizations still produce relationships at higher rates than apps. Therapy and intentional self-work increase relational readiness. Men investing in emotional intelligence and real-world ambition become more attractive partners. Women expanding their criteria slightly beyond traditional status markers find deeper compatibility. None of this is a magic fix, but all of it is grounded, honest, and actionable. The growing divide between American men and women isn't permanent. It's a symptom of systems that changed faster than culture could catch up. And the first step, for individuals, for communities, for a country, is simply to look at it clearly, without flinching, and start the harder conversation about what comes next. If this gave you something to think about, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe if you haven't already. We're not done asking the uncomfortable questions.